Okay, for this last section, we're going to look at texturing and materials slightly differently. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way, and let's focus in on this barrel. This barrel will make a good example of what we're wanting to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and zero out the translates, modify, freeze transformations, and then I'm just going to hit Control 1 to isolate the barrel in this view. And then I'm also going to delete my history, edit, delete by type, history. Now the reason I did this with the barrel is because I do want to break this up into some pieces and just look at this, but let's see. If I go to my UV editor, we will see quite a bit of interesting elements in this, right? So if I go to my UV shells, you'll see this shell here is mainly the wood underneath. This shell is the top and the bottom. This shell here and this is the little plug that goes in there. And then a lot of these shells are actually these bands of metal that go around it, right? So it's actually pretty well UV unwrapped, and so that's great. You know, if I needed to do something else to it, I would. But for right now, I think I'm just going to leave it like it is. And even though I could separate this into multiple pieces, the UVs have already been separated into multiple pieces, and so it'll work pretty well like it is. So what we want to do is we are going to export this file out of here, out of Maya, and we're going to take it into another program. And so again, that's why this is one of the bonus videos for this lecture. This is not required, but I do think that if you're really enjoying texturing and lighting and rendering, this is something you're going to enjoy a lot. So we're going to talk about two other programs that both kind of do similar things, and they're both should be free versions that you can use. And so the first one is Adobe Substance 3D Painter, or Substance Painter. So if you actually look up Substance Painter free student, you should be able to find a way in which you can actually create a student account and get prove that you're eligible for it and be able to download Substance and use it. If you don't want to go through that, and I will say I really like Substance Painter. It's the one that I think is the easiest to understand pretty quickly. There's another program that does something similar called Quixel Mixer, and Quixel Mixer is out there. You can download it and use it for free as well. Right now, I have both of them on here. I'm going to primarily work in Substance Painter, and if I have time, I'll make a video to show you a little bit about Quixel Mixer as well. But there's a lot of learning information on here as well. So Substance Painter I have installed, and so we'll do Substance 3D Painter. I'm just going to open this up, and so we'll let it be opening in the background, and in the meantime I have this wooden barrel in here, and I need to get a version of it into Substance Painter. So we're going to export this mesh as an FBX file. So you'll remember FBX is what we were importing in from the base mesh. So I'm going to export this as an FBX file so I can take this into Substance Painter and be creating some materials with it. Just to test this, if I hit 3, we'll get to see what this looks like if it's smoothed. And is that even something we want? I don't know. Probably not. So let's just not worry too much about that. So with that selected, File, Export Selection, choose this options box. I want it to be an FBX export, and I'll say Export Selection. You'll see right now it's exporting it out to my scenes. That's fine. I'm going to call this Barrel. That'll work. And then hit Export Selection. And then I can now go to Substance Painter. So yeah, there's lots of great learning tools in here. I'm not going to use any of those. So once we have Substance Painter open, we need to load a model in here. And that barrel that we just exported is the model we're going to use. So I'm going to go to File, and I will say new. And this is where I need to select a couple of things. So I think that's fine. This PBR metallic roughness alpha blend. Yeah, that looks fine. Yeah. And then I'm going to change my document resolution to 2048. And then I'm also going to select a file. And so you're seeing it's going to a different folder, and I need to just go ahead and find where I just exported that out to, my scenes folder. And I can paste that into here and choose Barrel FBX and hit open. And I believe that's everything I need. I don't know that I want to do auto unwrap. Let's remove that and hit OK. And there we go. And so you should see now pretty much what we were seeing earlier. We have our UVs over here. We have our barrel over here. And most of the navigation is going to be the same. Alt, right click, middle click, left click are going to do mostly the same things. So this is essentially a combination of Photoshop, Maya, and Maya's material editor. Okay, so what we have is, instead of how we were painting in Photopea, where I could just paint a color or a color map, this will allow us to paint a full material. Right? And think of a material as all of these different things, right? It has your color map, which will be like this gray brownish for this mud, but it's also got a normal map, and it's also got a specular map, and it's also got a whole bunch of other stuff. And so this will allow us to paint entire materials and alter entire materials on here. So for us, let's just start playing around with some of these. Like maybe a simple one is this stylized rough wood. And so I can just grab this and drop on here, and it puts this stylized rough wood on this barrel. I can also add other materials on top of it and just map those out into certain parts of the model, right? So for example, if I wanted to do, let's see if we got a metal in here. Or even something weirder like human skin, right? No, let's just find a metal. Okay. All right. Oh, I didn't really mean to do that. Sorry. So what I want to do now is drag metal and drag that in on top of it. And so now I have rough wood and metal on top of each other. And what I really want to do is map or mask out the parts where each of these are going to be applied. Right? So I can right click on stylized or on metal sandblasted, and I'm going to add a black mask. And what it looks like happened is that the metal just disappeared. But really what it is we made a mask, and the mask is now saying nothing is visible. And so if I want to add parts that are visible, I can click this button here, this polygon fill, and I'm going to choose on this little drop down, or on this menu down here, instead of polygon fill, I'm going to choose UV chunk fill. And what I can now do is go through here with this set to white and start clicking these different pieces of the UV and masking out what we'll be able to see the metal part now. And you'll quickly see that the metal is now applied to those bands, but the wood is still applied to everything. And you can still see like the wood normal under there. So what I'll probably do is apply a black mask to this as well, and then I can use the same fill to fill in the wood and the wood barrel parts and our pieces there. Right. And so that gave me a very quick way to material this whole barrel, right? So let's look at let's just delete these two layers here. So I can remove layer, which is actually just the delete key. Okay, so we're just using, this is just basic materials, right? And so I want to show you, like if I mask over here, these are just materials. Substance also has something called smart materials. And smart materials use a lot of different information to create the material. So you can have stuff like the areas that get worn more. So to show you that, let's get our different woods here. Yeah, wood ship hull Nordic. So if I drag this on here, you're going to see that it can tell, like it's not just one color layer, it is all of these different elements of this. But for it to really understand how to apply it to it, it kind of has to analyze your model first. So we're going to go to our texture settings and click Bake Mesh Maps. And so it's going to go through, and I have Bake Selected Textures. It's going to go through and analyze the model, analyze the edges of it, and find out, like, you know, areas where things are touching, things like that. Okay, so that's complete. Yes. No, wait. I don't want to do that. I want to go back to my return to painting mode. There we go. And so now you'll see it did stuff like analyze where things are touching and add additional weird areas and add like ambient occlusion to it. And we're getting some really interesting material solutions in here now. So maybe I want to make that cork a different type of wood, right? So let's make it this walnut here. So I'll just drag this in here on top of this. So I've made the whole thing walnut. Ooh, actually, kind of like that better for this. Well, let me see. I think I want this dark to be the cork. Wood walnut. I'm going to add a black mask. And then I'm going to paint that black mask. Painting on a disabled layer. Oh, it's because I had the layer turned off. My bad. That and that. And so now you'll see that my cork is darker, right? And so we could also find more of a rough metal. Let's find a these are pretty shiny steel. I want something that looks pretty rough. Steel ruined. There we go. So I can drag steel ruined on here. Let's move it up to the top. There we go. So everything is steel, and with this ruined steel, I can add a black mask, and again, go back through here and just add that mask to the pieces that I want to see. So we're getting a very nice result very quickly, right? And then on top of that, let's say I want to put some text across the top here. That's what some of these other things are. So we have these smart masks. These are filters that we can run so we can blur stuff or like do stuff to that to it. And then there's also different brushes and different alphas. So I can put symbols on here, right? So let's try that. Let's just do a paint layer. So this is just a layer that if I wanted to just like paint a color on it, right? The color I want to paint is I'm going to paint it more of this dark gray, maybe add just a little bit of red to it. There we go. So I'm painting like this, right? And I do want just a little bit of a normal to it, so that'll raise it a little bit as well. I don't know if you can really see that as well. I feel like it kind of raises the mesh up a little bit. and I'll make it a little bit rougher so there's less gloss to it. Right? And so with that, I can then put some of these symbols on here. So let's find a symbol or an alpha or a texture. I think this is where I want to be. So let's do this X. And so I can then use the greater than, less than signs in my brush. Just click it once, and now I have a big X on there. So that's phase one of this. Next video, I'll show you how to get this out of Substance and back into Maya.